Hi, my name is Kelsey. Today I'm going to be talking about the importance of trauma-informed care, especially when working with those who have been affected by human trafficking. So throughout this video and just in general, it's important to keep in mind that trauma-informed care applies to not just sex trafficking, but all different forms of human trafficking. In the article, An Examination of Some Central Debates on Sex Trafficking, Carrie and Baker points out that the legal definition of human trafficking includes many forms of human trafficking. So not just sex trafficking, but also labor trafficking, as well as organ trafficking, child soldiers, and adoption trafficking. So again, when we're looking at implementing trauma-informed care, it's important to implement it across the board under any circumstance that can fall underneath the human trafficking umbrella. So in this video today, I'm going to be talking about the way that the brain develops, the effect that trauma has on the brain, and then ways that we can implement trauma-informed care in our practice. So first, looking at the way that the brain develops, obviously the brain is very complex and has many different parts to it. For the purpose of this video today, we're going to break it down to two basic levels. So the reptilian part of the brain, and then also the executive part of the brain. So looking at the reptilian part of the brain, it's closest to the brain stem, and the brain develops from the brain stem up, so the bottom up. The reptilian part of the brain is the part of the brain that every animal has. It's very survival based, and it controls the very basic level of bodily functions. One of the biggest kind of goals or parts of this brain is the survival mechanism. So it's what initiates the flight or fight response. So you're hiking in the woods, you see a bear, your brain takes in the stimulus. The reptilian part of your brain responds a little bit faster than the executive part of the brain, so it's the one making the decision, survival-based, either fight or flight, what's going to be the best outcome possible. The next part of the brain is the executive part of the brain. This part of the brain includes the frontal lobe, so it's more deeper processing is able to take place. We're able to think things through, think more long-term, and maybe think a little bit more clearly. It's less survival-based. It's important to keep in mind that the reptilian part of your brain responds a little bit faster than the executive part of the brain. This is important, again, when looking at trauma. So if you're able to kind of use our hand as an example here, down here we have the reptilian part of the brain, and then we have the executive part of the brain that kind of comes down over it. So the goal when working with anybody, but especially those who have been affected by human trafficking, is we want to be able to function while under the frontal lobe or the executive part of the brain. But oftentimes what happens with those who have been consistently exposed to trauma, such as human trafficking, in the article Evidence-Based Practices, they point out that human trafficking is a horrific crime against humanity, and it often brings about both physical and emotional trauma. So again, something that we see with this is that things that normally wouldn't cause a flight or fight response or the reptilian brain to take over actually do. So a lot of times people come in to seek care, something may or may not trigger them, now we're functioning under the reptilian part of the brain. This is a less effective approach to helping survivors. So that's why we want to help implement trauma-informed care so that we're functioning under this executive part of the brain. So according to the World Health Organization, the top priority when interviewing survivors of human trafficking should be to do no harm. So with that goal in mind, Roger Fallett kind of laid out 5 steps to be aware of and to help us implement trauma-informed care in our practice. So the first one is to establish safety, not only physical safety, but also emotional safety. The following 4 steps help us implement these things, but they also include kind of the way that you interact with your clients and the environment that you're in. Second step is to make sure the client knows you're trustworthy. So this includes not only keeping your word, but also setting and holding strong professional boundaries. The third step is to make clients understand that they have choices. Their treatment, what their care looks like, is largely up to them. In the article Trafficking and Trauma, they give a couple recommendations that help kind of implement this step. So they give a couple ideas to facilitate discussions. Some of these include normalizing the question so people don't feel targeted, not pressuring people to respond, emphasizing safety and confidentiality in the screening process. Fourth is to collaborate with our clients. This helps them realize that they are in control of the situation. As Annie Furbancher says in the article First Do No Harm, published in 2013, she says many clients feel as though practitioners are going to make them give up details that they're not yet ready to discuss. This is not something we want, so being aware of this type of response is huge in trauma-informed care. Last, we want to empower our clients, acknowledge their strengths, and build upon them. This helps them, again, kind of feel safe and feel like they can, again, kind of function under this executive part of the brain. According to the Freedom Network, children experience psychological trauma at a deeper level and therefore may find it harder than adults to confide in individuals regarding painful, intimate events. So again, keeping these things in mind, especially when working with children, and implementing these things with children, really helping them feel safe because they're going to have a harder time disclosing is another important thing when working with sex trafficking. So I hope that that was helpful as we move forward and combat this very important issue. Thanks for watching.